For many of my clients, they have young children. And when we're having conversations around financial planning, one of the questions that I always ask my clients in the onboarding is, what is their relationship with money? And oftentimes this gets back to their experience as children. Think about your 13-year-old self and think about what you thought about money at that time. This could be you were the poor kid. This could be I realized I was middle class. And this could be I was the wealthy kid in class. And so this is a really important question that then relates to how do we talk to our own children about money? Because the things that our kids are watching us do has a huge imprint on their day-to-day. In fact, I was just talking to some folks recently about their relationship with their kids and money. And my 7-year-old has been asking me a lot about money recently. And I think it has something to do with where she is in her academic life. She's learning a lot about math and some of the other financial concepts that would relate to that. So in our household, I believe it's very helpful and very healthy to talk about money in a healthy way. This isn't to say that we tell her that we are rich or poor or there are kids that are doing better or worse. We don't want to make it this taboo subject because that can create some scarcity mindset around it. It can also then create some hiding and some insecurities. And so what we do is we have open dialogues. And this is something that happens a lot when we go to the store. I try to connect the thing with the price of that thing. So if let's just say my daughter wants a Barbie's dream house and it costs $90. I don't want to just buy the Barbie's dream house for the sake of buying the Barbie's dream house. I want her to understand what that $90 price tag is for the Barbie's dream house. And so when we start to look at that, I try to explain to her that if she were to do a certain chore. So for example, we do some chores around the house to help her understand where her role is in the family. And so with those chores can come some financial incentives. So when I think about the Barbie's dream house as an example, we look at how much time and effort and energy it would take for her to earn the $90 that it would take to buy the Barbie's dream house. And for her, that's a really interesting concept because now if let's just say she earns $5 for a certain activity, she now understands that she's got to do that activity many times to earn the $90 to be able to pay for that Barbie dream house on her own. And with the piggy bank, we talk about putting the money away. And this is not actually, it's actually really important for me to have her put the dollars and coins into the piggy bank. It's physically her doing it, not me, because now she's building a connection, a physical connection between the dollar that she earns and that piggy bank that she has, as opposed to me going and putting the dollar. Then what she does is she gets really excited to then look at all of the money that's in there. She gets to pull it out and then she sorts it all. So she sorts the bills and then she starts to sort the coins. And she can start to understand all of these things in a conceptual way that connects with her in the way that she learns. And then we have the opportunity to then go to the store and then buy the thing that she wants. So she'll go up to the really expensive item and she'll know that she has $25, for example, and we'll look at it and it's 40. Well, guess what? I have to be disciplined as well to say, yeah, we're not gonna fill that gap. The $40 thing is more expensive than what's inside of her budget. And mind you, she's 7 years old. She doesn't quite understand what these are. So we have to kind of walk her through. We have to be patient. We have to explain to her how that relates. And again, my hope is that we don't create this scarcity mindset around it, but also help her understand some of the concepts that are, she has to live within this certain budget. How do you operate within that constraint in a healthy way to get the things that you not only need, but you want? So that's a really healthy thing to have that I believe has worked really well with our children. Another interesting conversation is what the child understands about the dollars. So as an example, we were talking about a big trip that we're going on. And my 7-year-old said, oh my gosh, that trip must be like at least $100, without the understanding of what $100 is or what is $1,000 or what is $5,000. So it is sort of a funny experience. And I think that there's an ability to laugh and understand that, gosh, she just does not have a real connection to it. But having an open dialogue and helping her understand where this money comes from. And so talking to her about, mom and dad going to work and why we spend money and where do we spend money and why is it important that, why is it important to not overspend? They are also in ski lessons. And we didn't want to tell her that, ski lessons were super expensive and that it was a big burden on our family. But we also wanted to express to her that it was really important for her to take it seriously because mom and dad invested a lot of money into this. And she wants to do it, so it's not us forcing this thing on her. She really wants to do it, but she also needs to understand that, if it's a kind of a cold Saturday and maybe she just doesn't really want to go, well, for us, that's important that we get up and go. And it's don't quit today. We're going to commit to this thing. We're going to see it through, and that can build some grit and some resilience in addition to that. So in addition to just thinking about how we spend money on a day-to-day basis, and this could be in real time, we can also talk to our children about what it means to plan. And this isn't just financial planning. We can start to think about what it means to plan for a future event, whether this is a dance recital or a gymnastics event or a ski race. And one of the things that I look at is we have to think about when that event is. As an example, my daughter has a gymnastics event coming up in March. And one of the areas that she really struggles with is the beam. So how do we look at practice as a way to set her up for success when she goes and does the showcase? And so this is just one of those small bits of the planning process that we can then connect to personal financial planning. So as an example with her, I want her to start small. If she gets the whole routine handed to her and put it in her lap, overwhelming, can't handle it. But if she's able to take it in bite-sized steps, then she can be much more successful. And that one thing that she has on the beam that's a little bit challenging, she knows that it's not that she doesn't get overwhelmed by the big things, because those other moves that she does are much more simple, they're easier for her, but it's that one thing that she has to overcome. So if she can not get overwhelmed by the big thing and just focus on the individual steps, she becomes much more successful. So we can connect that to personal financial planning. Many people get overwhelmed by the idea of retirement planning, that they need to have $5 million in the bank and they need to have all these things in place at 60 or 65 or 70 or whenever that retirement date is. And today they're looking at their bank account and their total investments and they have $250,000. They're like, oh my gosh, how do I go from $250,000 to $5 million? And I've got to do it over 25, 30 years. It seems like forever, but also seems like it's tomorrow. And it's like, it's this big thing that there's all these things and emotions that they're wrestling with. And so my goal and objective is to show them. So if we use technology to our benefit. So at 4 Points Wealth, we integrate a lot of technology to help them understand the various different scenarios. Well, we know that there's a lot of unpredictability. So then how do we manage that? How do we show that in our systems? And there's some really cool tools so we can create clarity. So now the first step is to help them see, okay, if you just continue on this trajectory, this is the likely path that you will achieve at X date in the future. Or there might be a potential failure, meaning they might run out of money. And in which case now we can make those adjustments, we can make those changes. Because in my life, unfortunately in my early career, I worked with a lot of retirees that kind of had the good, bad, and the ugly. And it was really sad to sit in front of somebody that was 62 that had less in their retirement savings than you probably have in your checking account today. And that was a really sad moment because the only thing that they had was really Social Security to rely upon. And so how do we make those changes earlier on, whether that's in your 30s or 40s or gosh, even in your 50s, but at some point you need to have the conversation of what long-term planning looks like. And strangely enough, this can tie to some of those lessons that you teach your children. So if you don't know where to start, and maybe it's a little awkward to have these conversations with your children, start with a conversation with me, because I can give you some tips and tricks on how to have those conversations. And if it really is helpful, we can get everybody together. We can get you and your children in the same room to have this conversation, because fortunately, we do work with multi-generations and help them guide their long-term financial picture.